Obviously exciting to see the end of that game the other night, and somebody finally on this team giving Sam Bennett what he deserves. Maybe finally getting back at him for what happened to Brad Marchand in the playoffs last year.
What is it about us as humans that loves that?
I just love it. It's like
I know. I mean, I like it
revenge,
too,
I
and I
guess.
miss it because we don't see it enough anymore. And with helmets and visors and all sorts of other stuff, there's something about it. Like some bad guy does something, and we want it to be rectified with somebody beating the crap out of him.
From my perspective, it's way too early, but there are some suggesting, like they did. Wiggy brought this up earlier, like they did when Jim Montgomery was fired, that getting rid of Brad Marchand may have been the best thing for this hockey team. Do you agree with that? Because they won a couple here.
Bull crap.
Okay,
That's just bull crap. I don't believe that. First of all, his reputation is as a good guy is long, and people have told me that all over the place. I've met him a couple times myself. He seems like a really good hockey player type guy. He plays his butt off, and there's no possible way that he could have been the reasons for this. And anybody who suggests that to me, I think is barking up the wrong tree. But listen, whatever happened, they rattled the cages, and they got a group of guys that look like they're quicker as a group collectively, and they're fresher collectively. None of these guys were like the go-to people on their team, and now they're having the opportunity to play a little bit more and get a different role and with a different group of guys and try to make an impression on a new organization. And that has turned out to be collectively a good thing. Will it last? I'll be shocked if they make the playoffs with this group and that it continues to go like that. But it'll be a pin a rose on Don Sweeney for doing that and making them a group that looks like it's going to stay in it till the end. They still have a lot of teams to climb over, and I'm suspect that it will happen. But hey, listen, let's enjoy the light while it lasts.
Were you surprised by the reporting this week that Brad Marchand was looking for $7.5 million? That's $1.5 million bump on the $6 he was making.
That to me was unrealistic thinking. If that's what it was, if that's what he was looking for, I mean, they got him on a good deal a long time ago, but the reality is that he's in the twilight of his career, and he's not going to get any better. He's been dinged up consistently, and historically, you can look at guys like Krejci and Bergeron who gave the team a hometown discount. I don't even call it a hometown discount. They took a contract that was realistic based on where they were age-wise and their contributions being less than they had been at one time. So if he really loved Boston and wanted to stay, I'm sure they could have come around to a deal that's $3 or $4 million a year or whatever it might be. That salary cap's going up, so they have more room to play with. But I think $7.5 million is a huge number and not realistic.
Mike, when you see that type of number, and you kind of you talked about it for a minute, does that tell you that maybe he wanted out of here because they probably could come to a closer number to what he was making this year annually in the $6 million? Does that tell you that maybe the player used a higher number for his way to maybe get up out of here?
I don't think so. I mean, he's got a bunch of kids. They're all in school. They're ready to be here. He's been here forever, for 16 years. I think he probably just misplayed his hand, and I don't think his agent did him any favors. I mean, that's what an agent's there for, is to get a sense of realism in what you can actually get, not, pie in the sky. I'm surprised at that, if that's an accurate depiction of what happened, that he was looking for that kind of money. But it's for me, that would have been easy to resolve as a general manager. I would have traded him on his way. What surprised me, actually, is they didn't get a little better haul for his services, because it was just, if they get a second and a third that could possibly happen 3 years from now is really kind of, head shaking. And I think they probably did him a favor by putting him in a position where he could win another cup and saying to themselves, like, we gave him a good chance here and let's see what he does with it. But we didn't maximize our haul. But that's what your role is as a general manager. And I have no idea if they had better offers, but if they did and they gave him a chance to go to a contender, God bless their intentions, but condemn their way to go. They should have. I thought they would have got a better haul.
Mike, I think, Don Sweety's made certainly a bunch of mistakes, and the team isn't, at all living up to what we expected this year. But given where he was, given the reported demands of Marchand, I feel like he did about as well as you could, in that he knew the second the trade deadline expired, all leverage the organization had over Marchand to keep him went out the window, and he was going to be an unrestricted free agent and leave for nothing. Considering what we know now, I don't know how you could have done it much different.
You couldn't have said it much better. I really think that's exactly right. He did as well as he could under the circumstances, and deserves some credit for this. I mean, I think he recognized some of his mistakes, and now he's trying to, correct them. And I believe that they got as much as they could for Coyle. They got as much as they could for Carlo, and
you got good value on the Charlie Coyle deal.
Yeah, so let's see what happens with it. I mean, I give them credit for saying, listen, they were going down the path to nowhere. It was going to be mediocre at best. I mean, middling, just barely get into the playoffs kind of team, and that's not what you're shooting for as a general manager, not what you want as a fan.
On another note, is it accurate that you were on the fateful conference call where the founding fathers of Gloucester berated this show for daring to think that we could get Scheim on the greasy pole at Roadshow time?
Well, it's kind of a interesting group up there in Gloucester. They have some mafioso-like tendencies, but we'll continue to work it.
I mean, but what happened? Like, you guys just got on the call thinking, "Hey, this might be great," and then they were outraged that we had dared to even.
Well, there were some other issues, like the Tide was going to be in the wrong situation at the time that we're going to be there. But you mean
Scheim going in the water was going to create?
He might have just fallen into mud instead of water, which would have been interesting too, right? But I don't know. We'll try again. I had a conversation with the board, and I'm going to work on it again. But
okay,
it's still going to be a very good time.
No,
I'm looking forward to being at the boat part. Looking forward to being part of the fiesta and having a meal at my place by the sea.
Okay, so you're saying that negotiations continue.
Still ongoing.
I should stop talking about it.
Yeah, but I now wear a vest.
Okay. Maybe it's the sit down of the five families of Gloucester.
It might be the five families of Gloucester.
Right.
I mean, they take it very seriously
Yeah,
up there.
well.
I for one, I probably underestimated how serious they take it in Gloucester.
I didn't realize there was a 5-year waiting
Yeah, I
list.
didn't know there was a huge waiting list.
Did you watch the documentary? Somebody locally did a documentary called Love in Greece. It's on YouTube.
I heard it's really good.
It's very good. I enjoyed watching it.
I didn't realize it costs $5,000 a pop to load the grease on there.
Yeah, I know. We got to be environmentally conscious, though.
Right.
Mike, Scheim and I, we've kind of been going back and forth a little bit on this as far as the rebuild process with the Bruins. Now that they've kind of unloaded everything, they're on this whole rebuild. He thinks that it'll be maybe a year or two. I just think that they don't have a lot of talent other than really Pasternak, and might take a lot longer than that because I feel like rebuilding hockey is a lot different than other sports. How long do you think before this team is back to actually being a real contender?
It's a great question, Wiggy, and I'm sure that they're trying to figure it out themselves. But there won't be a rebuild without a rebuild at center, and whether Mittelstadt is going to be a second line center, can live up to his potential, will be interesting. If they could have filled that hole with this guy, then they need to find somebody else through their multiple draft picks now. But I think it's a longer process than a year or two. I think it's a much longer process. So they do have 3 or 4 bona fide, legitimate stars, corner pieces that they can lean on, but it's 20 guys on a hockey team, and they've got some guys at the back end that should be okay, but it's the core players. And until the core pieces are filled with not adequate, really good players, then they won't be very good. And I think they have a ways to go. They're going to have to be lucky and good in the draft, or maybe lucky in free agency to get it done. But I'd say it's 3 years.
All right,
minimum.
Mike Milbury, thank you as always.
That's
We'll
it.
talk-
I'm in the bums rush here. Bye, Greg. See ya.